Welcome to the BioPharma Business Intelligence Unit, where symbolic integrity meets strategic clarity. At BBIU, we go beyond the headlines to decode the structural forces behind global biopharma, AI, and economic realignment. If you value precision, verification, and symbolic depth, this channel is for you. Subscribe now to access our weekly briefings, dossiers, and intelligence reports, and consider joining our institutional tier to unlock early warning systems, custom metrics, and exclusive strategic insight. You're not just listening, you're entering the future of epistemic intelligence. www.BioPharmaBusinessIntelligenceUnit.com.
U.S. Government Shutdown 2025, a structural blackout in economic signaling, executive summary. On October 1, 2025 at 001 EST, the United States federal government entered its first shutdown in 7 years, after the Senate failed to pass a temporary funding resolution 55-45, short of the required 60 votes. Approximately 750,000 federal employees face furloughs, while essential personnel, including air traffic controllers and security officers, must work without pay. The consequences extend beyond immediate operational disruption. The suspension of official economic data releases, jobs report, CPI, GDP, effectively blinds both markets and policymakers, creating a statistical blackout. The shutdown weakens U.S. global credibility, pressures the dollar index, fuels gold's rally above $3,900 OTS, and raises the structural question: can the world's reserve currency withstand recurrent governance paralysis? Importantly, this paralysis is legislative in origin, not executive. Congress holds the constitutional power of the purse and failed to fulfill it. Meanwhile, the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, a Trump administration initiative, has added a secondary layer of volatility by accelerating contract cancellations and agency downsizing under the banner of efficiency.
Structured opinion, BBIU analysis. The 2025 shutdown is not the result of executive failure, as much of the press suggests. It is a legislative breakdown. The constitutional design is clear. The executive may propose, but only Congress can authorize the flow of funds through 12 appropriations bills or a continuing resolution. By failing to perform this basic function, Congress has paralyzed the machinery of the state. The crisis is not about fiscal scarcity. The money exists. What is absent is the legal signature, the authorization without which the Treasury cannot move a dollar. This distinction matters. Framing the shutdown as a Trump problem misreads the architecture. The president cannot unilaterally fund the government. He can only sign what Congress produces. The paralysis is legislative, not executive. Yet paradoxically, this very dynamic creates an opening for Trump. In the vacuum created by congressional inaction, he can recast the shutdown as proof that the federal government is bloated, inefficient, and in need of structural reduction. Through DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, selective contract cancellations and agency downsizing can be presented not as collateral damage, but as a corrective. A leaner, tighter state rising out of congressional dysfunction.
The paradox is sharpened by the hierarchy of power. DOGE can trim contracts, terminate grants, and halt discretionary spending. But without congressional appropriations, even efficient outlays cannot be executed. Efficiency gains are meaningless when the faucet itself is closed. The true bottleneck is not in the executive branch, but in the composition of Congress, where the Senate's 60-vote filibuster threshold and the House's partisan fragmentation transform appropriations into hostage negotiations. From a structural perspective, each shutdown erodes U.S. credibility. Domestically, it translates into unpaid workers and stalled services. Globally, it signals that the issuer of the reserve currency cannot guarantee continuity of its own fiscal channel. The symbolic impact is immediate. The dollar index softens, gold rallies, and alternative anchors, regional currencies, stablecoins, digital settlements, gain plausibility. The epistemic cost is even higher. By halting the publication of official employment, CPI, and GDP data, the U.S. has blacked out its role as the world's statistical reference point. BBIU's position: the 2025 shutdown is not a temporary episode of partisan dysfunction. It is a structural vulnerability in U.S. governance, embedded in the very DNA of its constitutional order. Congress's failure to appropriate does not merely inconvenience agencies. It undermines the epistemic infrastructure of global markets. Trump, far from being cornered, may weaponize this paralysis as validation of his long-standing thesis that the federal state must be cut down. The contradiction is stark. The United States can project power abroad, but domestically it struggles to maintain the legal continuity of its own budget. This duality weakens trust not only in U.S. institutions, but in the long-term stability of the dollar system itself.
You've reached the end of the open section of this BBIU content. The complete analysis, with full data, structural frameworks, and extended annexes, is available exclusively to our subscribers. At BBIU, we believe the real value lies beyond headlines, in the depth of structural intelligence that helps leaders and organizations see further. If you want access to the complete archive and future reports, join us at BBIU and take part in the next level of analysis.